Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the user adoption panel for today. I'd like to take a quick minute before we get started with small introductions from our guests. Right? Probably Dazzle, we can start with you, the kind of work that you do, and a little bit about what you're looking forward to during ETH Vietnam itself.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Dazzle. I'm from Team Kroma. Thank you, Ryan, for presenting what Kroma was just before this session. Excuse me. So I'm a head of marketing in Kroma. So my job is to reach out and educate about what Kroma is, what blockchain is to the mass media and community. And I'm here to meet many gaming projects in Vietnam, learn about Vietnam market, and network with many great minds who are here right now.
All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Manbir, and at heart, I'm an Ethereum ecosystem builder. Over the past 3 to 4 years, I've had the opportunity to work with some of the industry leaders, including Consensus, MetaMask, Binance, and over the past few months, I've been working with Ethereum Foundation over a grant to build out the Ethereum ecosystem, mostly in India as well as some of the other Asian regions. And yeah, I'm based in India and happy to be here. Thanks for having me here.
Hi, my name's Andy. I'm head of product for Chat3. We're a SocialFi platform that specializes in enabling Web3 features for live streaming and for live video conferencing. For example, being able to airdrop or sell tokenized assets directly through a stream. And we're hoping that this will help create more engaging and meaningful experiences for individuals, projects, and even launchpads or incubators.
Great. Thank you so much for the introductions. So let's get started with the discussion. I think our topic is one of the favorite topics for the entire ecosystem, which is how is it that we can bring more people in so that we can make more money, all of us collectively, I think. So let's try and see if we can put together a couple of thoughts and insights in terms of how we can solve this major problem so that I think the rest of the ecosystem can benefit as well. So getting right into it, I think my first question is, I think even in the earlier bull run, there's been a lot of discussion about user onboarding anyway, right? And I think now there's some clarity in terms of where these challenges lie. First is the complex UX of Web3 dApps, which has consistently been improving since, I think, the last bull run to the bear market, and I think the next great bull run, which is just getting started. Second is user education, right? And third is mainly with respect to the security concerns that come with owning your own assets and managing them yourself, right? Of course, there's a tertiary element of stigma towards anything new, which is nothing, nothing we can do much about. But these are the topics which I think I've broadly sort of broken this down, user onboarding into. What are your thoughts on that? Or is there anything else that I might have missed out on? Probably Dazzle, we'll start with you, and then we'll go around.
Okay. For user experience, as a head of marketing, it's something that we always have to solve and always have to kind of always brainstorm how we can educate the mass media, especially in the Web3 community. UX is very important, so making sure it's easy. I think making easy is the most important part for any projects in blockchain. Education is second. So especially when we start with creating a wallet, first thing. So any non-Web3 user who make a wallet don't know how important seed phrase is. So I've heard from many friends who tried making wallet for the first time that they just write it down in their email and send it to themselves, or they took a picture on their phone, or even like write down on their notes on their phone, and then I have to really educate them how important security seed phrase is. So education is very important with UX. So once you have a good UX experience in Web3, I think that's a really good stepping stone into onboarding onto Web3. So education is number one that I'd like to talk about, yeah.
Okay.
And then I'll let you guys
go
ahead.
Manbir, Andy, what are your thoughts?
Oh, I mean, well, as a head of product, it's the user experience is very important. So the biggest really hurdle, like Dazzle mentioned, is really education, right? Like people are like Web3, and they automatically think, what new things do I have to learn or know? But I think it's our job to really abstract out the technological aspect and benefits and just sell just the benefits. So, like it's the old model KISS, right? Like keep it simple and you can say whatever you want for the last S. But our focus has always been towards like, how do we just make it so the user doesn't have to think about it? Like make it as familiar as possible. I'll admit it, in the beginning we tried to be cool and design something new and people are like, how do I use this? How do I use that? And in the end we just go, these are the traditional UI design elements that everybody understands. It's like when you buy an iPhone, they don't give you an instruction booklet for iOS. You just know how to use it. And everybody else kind of follows that design aesthetic. And so we've just chosen the same path.
For sure, I completely resonate with Andy and Dazzle. I personally feel that I would add these things in maybe 2 or 3 layers. The first one would be education, community building, ecosystem development, basically coordination, anything that requires human coordination. Then comes all the technological advancements, security, user experience, which is, I would say, both of them are equally important. You start with educating more people, they start building, they start improving those products that exist. And Andy also mentioned about abstraction. So I personally also feel that ERC 4337 account abstraction as we know it is going to massively help the ecosystem in abstracting away all the complexities, and users would be able to kind of interact with accounts that are much smarter, that don't need to interact directly with the consensus layer, seed phrase, for example, could be something that can be simplified for people, which is something that can also be over the time improved upon. I see wallets already working on that. And then the third layer is all the miscellaneous things, including regulation, including compliance, which might not be in control of most people, might not be in control of the masses, but is also equally important.
So I think I'm sensing a large consensus towards solving for the UX first. So I think I'll dig into that. We'll dig a little bit into the complex UX of Web3 dApps and sort of start from there. So probably Andy, we'll start off with you. What do you think are some of the key challenges that need to be solved from a UX point of view across the board? If you can cite a few examples, that would be great. And probably even the rest of us can also talk a little bit about how is it that we can mitigate these challenges? Is there some work being done towards this on this front? So Andy, over to you.
Thank you. Well, kind of building off of what Manbir just said about like the whole abstraction of everything and what Dazzle mentioned about like seed phrases. Most people, when they create an account, you type in your email and you choose a password, right? They know passwords. And then after you sign in, then it's like, do you want to use biometrics, your fingerprint or your Face ID? And then that's how people forget their passwords. Just like how mobile phones make sure that nobody knows what anyone's phone number is. So part of the design in this is, I think, really just simplifying some of those like more specific aspects of Web3. So keeping the whole flow as close to a Web2 product as possible. And so like creating an account, non-custodial wallets, and then the education will come when they want to off-ramp or anything like that, right? And when it comes to that, they're all ears. So from our standpoint, we really just make it very easy for the user to come in and try, and then we move on from there.
Okay, Manbir?
Yeah, I completely resonate with what Andy mentioned. On top of that, I would like to mention the constant developments around protocols also play a major role. So proto-dank sharding, as we just saw happen like 3 days back, and it's been hugely contributing towards lowering the transaction fees and roll-ups having to roll-ups having their own blobs where they can post the transactional data. So I would say people also need to kind of stay on top of these developments that are happening and actively try to contribute to these EIPs, to these ERCs whenever possible. Go ahead, go on GitHub discussions, go on GitHub issues, ask questions if you have them. That's how you start contributing to that. Just mention about the challenges that you're facing. If those are unique challenges, I'm sure there must be developers that are actively willing to contribute to those issues. That's basically how you get started about it.
But it's actually quite interesting that we've got a product person and a developer who are in complete agreement in terms of what needs to be done next. But over to you, Dazzle, in terms of your thoughts on this.
Let's say for marketing, I think the best thing we can do is provide value. Value to the users for them to really see what this brings, for them to really try. And then once they see the value, then they will, this is something that I actually have to learn step by step and actually do this to get here. And then once the value is set, then I think that might help with the whole security engines, onboarding with the UX, the experience.
Actually,
very IFFT, if this, then that.
In fact, what you said also sort of brings me back to an earlier point you mentioned in terms of how we were experimenting with. Okay. All right, cool. Thank you. So it brings me back to the earlier point that you mentioned in terms of earlier when Web3 just had its boom. You mentioned we were talking about what are some great, cool new design elements we could introduce? What is it that we could build that's going to look really fancy, really glitzy, right? But then eventually we've again gone back to the standard design principles, what everybody understands, right? So in terms of Dazzle, what you've said about delivering value and getting people to understand that value, right? And what you'd mentioned, Andy, in terms of the, after the set of experiments were done, you came back to what actually works, right? So what are your thoughts in terms of how this is going to progress? Do you think that this has been the solution is one of the potential solutions for simplifying UX experiences, which is to see, can we keep it simple, clean, and as it has always been with, say, the Web2 ecosystem and the kind of apps that have been built there? And it's the same thing that's going to be part of Web3. Web3 is not going to have a distinct identity as such anymore. Andy, I want your thoughts.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's kind of a combination of what everybody's saying. You really do have to sell the value for somebody, not even in Web3, any product, if you don't sell the value of it, then you can't even get people to listen or discover what it is. But in terms of what kind of Manbir has been mentioning a lot of, from the developer side is, you do have to think a lot about, the technical advances that make the process a lot easier. So we mentioned wallet abstraction, but then there's all of these chains that exist, right? And what about, chain abstraction? Everyone's launching their own tokens on different chains, and then if you want to participate with this token in another product, you got to start doing some sophisticated swaps and bridging, and those are things that even Web3 people have difficulties with.
Correct.
So the technological advances that a lot of the people here that are working on and will work on will play a major role in that.
Okay. So also the rest of you actually, Manbir, your thoughts as well.
Sure, for sure. So what I feel is, I completely agree with what Andy and Dazzle both mentioned first. On top of that, I also feel the way people resonate with what kind of value an ecosystem is providing, products are providing, is when they truly see what kind of change we're bringing to the society, when they truly see the challenges that exist as of today. For example, we don't need to have all the social media platforms that constantly keep showing you ads just as you scroll the feed, just as you scroll your Instagram stories. It doesn't need to stay this way. Companies don't need to retain your data. Companies don't need to sell your data to other organizations. The UX is in itself kind of screwed up, right? And a lot of it has to do with what we have allowed these companies, these platforms to do with our data, right? And it doesn't need to stay this way. And we can bring a change once we help more people get educated and realize what kind of future we're building, what kind of values we stand with. We're building a transparent internet. We're building an internet that is driven by credible neutrality. We're building a user-owned internet. We're building a place that allows people to own their own data in real time and have full control over their data. So once you help people see that optimistic side of what we're building, I think that's when they start to realize, hey, now this is something that gets me excited. This is something that I need to work towards.
Yeah, you guys put it so well. I agree. I don't think there's anything else that I can add to it.
So I think this has really set up, especially the conversation we've just had, has really set up well to segue into the next part that I really want to get into, which is when we simplify UX, it comes with certain trade-offs. And trade-offs mean security challenges across the board. And I understand that this is something that affects every single aspect of any blockchain company, any Web3 company, be it the kind of products you're building, be it the tech folks who are actually building it, or the marketing folks and the rest of the PR team, which is probably delivering this and communicating this to users. So just to give you an example is social logins, which simplify user onboarding. It comes with a certain set of trade-offs on the security front, right? So now I want to dig into the next segment, which is going to revolve around security. And what do you think are some key challenges that need to be solved for before to sort of improve user adoption? Feel free to take examples. Manbir, we'll start with you.
Sure. So what I feel is security goes in both hands. It goes towards users, towards the consumers, as well as the technical side of things. I'll start with tech side first. So security is something I feel should not be sacrificed for scalability or anything whatsoever. Security should be at the core of what we're building. And how we kind of ensure that security is there at the first place is when we start doing regular audits for the smart contracts, when we start doing regular checks, when we're building open source at the first place, so that anyone has an opportunity to come and take a deeper dive into the code itself and see what kind of vulnerabilities, what kind of bugs exists. That is step one itself, but there's a lot more along the way. Transparency plays a big role as well. All the protocols or all the dApps need to be transparent about their roadmap, about the challenges that they're facing so that people could come and contribute to them. And on the user side of things as well, I personally feel education plays the biggest role here. So getting more people educated about how they can keep their wallet secure, how they can keep their secret recovery phrase secure, how to disconnect from a dApp when they're not using that, how to disconnect from any website when they're not using that. And one really good development that one of the recent wallets did, MetaMask basically with snaps, is snaps basically show you what kind of dApp you're interacting with and what kind of impact it is going to have on your wallet. Like it tells you in real time whether or not this snap or this dApp is safe to interact with. And it shows you in real time whether or not it's safe to interact with it. So I think developments like that are going to be very beneficial for the whole ecosystem.
Andy? Oh, Dazzle? Any of you, take it away.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we all agree with what everyone says, but I do look at it kind of from like the user perspective in terms of security and like how secure is my data and and in some cases my funds. And then from the outside looking in, it's like, how secure is this platform or service that I'm trying to access, right? And one thing that people don't talk about a lot is like Web3 is actually one of like the few kind of industries where people publicly disclose, this is my smart contract in my code, you can see it anytime, right?
Yeah.
Like Meta doesn't do that. I don't know what Google's search algorithm's like, you know, those are trade secrets. But on Web3, secrets don't make customers, you know?
That's a great way to put it. Yeah.
Yeah, so I really kind of look at it from like, you know, the main word is kind of consent, right? Just, you know, like another Apple example is like they actually do have a very Web3 developers mindset in which they're like, just the App Store right now, you download this app and you're consenting to A, B, C, D, E. You know, if you don't download it, right? And so, you know, that's not a Web3 specific kind of mentality. It's
Correct.
just something that, as Manbir said before about, you know, protecting and owning your data, like that's something that the big traditional mainstream corporations don't want you to be aware of. You know, when you access a website, you know, like the default is accept all cookies. And then you have to go through this like rabbit hole to be like, only what is necessary, right?
And we don't know what's only necessary.
Exactly, yeah. So, I mean, I'm just looking at it kind of from that perspective.
Okay.
So yeah, as Manbir said, it's all about security. You cannot compromise security, first and foremost. And second, you mentioned transparency, which is very important. Like Andy said, Web3 is I think the most transparent industry that I know of. And then I think that's the third stage is where marketing and communication comes into really portray the transparency and really portray the message across. And then marketing and communication is where it comes to everyone to look into, like it's the medium contact person between a project and the community. And the marketing really plays a significant role in communicating the transparency across between the business and the consumer.
Right. So, because that makes me really wonder. I understand that a lot of what you've said places the onus of security on the user, but then again, this is also the ethos of Web3, which is complete ownership, right? You need to be responsible for anything that you do, anything that you own. And this is diametrically opposite to what most of the Web2 corporations are doing in terms of centralizing and keeping everything with them, right? So what happens, at least this is my thought on security, is when you're placing too much responsibility on a user, right, they aren't able to handle that much responsibility as well, right? So I want to dig into this rabbit hole and take your thoughts in terms of, are we going to diss the users right now? Or are we going to talk about how is it that we can help them do better? And I'm going to start with the product person on the panel for this. Let's see what the champion of users has to say on this front.
Well, I mean, obviously from a product standpoint, our job is to make it as easy on the user as possible, but we can't hold their hand every step of the way. Like, users have to have some form of responsibility. So if you are trying to open a bank or get a loan and, you know, like you go through the traditional system, like you have to understand, you know, like what you're getting into, what are the real costs, what are the real risks, and, you know, it's up to the institutions to kind of provide as much information to you as possible and make it as easily digestible as possible, but they can't make the decision for you. So at the end of the day, I mean, we're supposed to make it easier, but it does fall on the user. Sorry.
That's very true. I would like to add on that. And marketing is the message that we portray, right? So yes, it is. We help them as much as we can. We guide them by making, you know, guides, tutorials, education system. But ultimately, like Andy said, it's the users. And then it's our job to make sure that they are aware of that.
Right. So, Manbir, I also want your thoughts on what Dazzle just said in terms of the communication aspect, where you need to bring, you know, you're trying to, also the segues into the education aspect, which you want to discuss, is you're making tutorials, you're making docs pages, you know, you're spending so much time. I think any reputable product in the Web3 space has an extensive, really great docs page that probably even not very technical people like me can understand. So what I want to understand from you is, do you think that this is really sort of helping in terms of getting people to understand? Because docs and tutorials and all of these aspects, the finer aspects of the dApps, right, even from a communication front, it focuses on folks who understand the technology, right? People like me who probably want to get into a staking platform and just do a particular transaction, I do not particularly want to be bothered by a lot of the information that you're giving me for my own benefit, right? I'm just I'm playing the devil's advocate here, so please don't mind, right? I'm not particularly into it. So just your thoughts, top of the mind thoughts maybe, in terms of how is it that we can strike a balance between making it easy, convenient, and accessible for them, which is, hey, this is what we're doing, all of it is here, go through it, after that, everything is your responsibility, right? And the second aspect, which is that we take complete responsibility for them, like, hey, we're going to hold your hand through this entire process, which is absolutely not possible, right? So Manbir, I want to take your thoughts on this and then go around the panel.
Sure. I completely feel that there needs to be some form of standardization across all the content that we're giving out to the community, all the educational content. Because a lot of what we're telling the users is, hey, you need to store your secret recovery phrase securely, you need to use this dApp very securely. You are responsible for your own funds, your own data. So why don't we kind of standardize all the information in one source maybe, or in one easy to understand language for them. It doesn't need to be one form of content. It could be documentation, it could be tutorials, it could be actual workshops that students or professors conduct at universities, at conferences like ETH Vietnam, at hackathons and so on. So yeah, I completely agree with the fact as well that these products cannot always do the hand-holding. It's the responsibilities of users as well, and consumers. And yeah, what I'll say is basically we need to kind of inculcate an environment where people care about their data, people care about the information that they own. That's when the change starts. That's when they start to take ownership. That's when they start learning about these processes that exist in order to, take full data ownership, in order to safeguard their funds. So yeah, I mean, once they fully understand what they're into, I believe it becomes much easier for them to make sure that there's no one that's going to hold their hand in the long term. And I'm not sure what's that quote exactly, but XYZ comes with big responsibility. So I believe here it could be ownership, and data security comes with responsibility that is entirely users' thing, right?
Are you quoting Uncle Ben from Spider-Man, which says, with great power comes great responsibility?
Exactly. With great power comes great responsibility.
Agreed. Andy, your thoughts?
Well, I mean, there's always like a ideal, best case, utopian like scenario, right? But then kind of in the real world, there's several stakeholders when you're building a product and when you're trying to kind of like acquire and appease customers. So, I mean, as harsh as it is to kind of put it this way, it's really kind of like a little bit of like risk mitigation. So you can make it really easy on the design and get users in and doing something, but that's a little bit reckless without telling them some of the consequences. But if you tell them each consequence reminder before each step, then you're really gonna cut them off from really, you're setting yourself up to fail before you even start, right? So, even like specifically from the marketing side, it's like, how do we strike a balance where we're doing right by the customer and everybody to say that we're giving them what we think is like the key points that they should understand, and then letting them know where and how to access the very important information for the deeper dives, but at the same time not making it so complicated that they don't even want to complete whatever step you're trying to have them do. So I mean, it's really just that from a business perspective.
Fair enough.
Yeah, so to build on top of what you said, I think since we've been in this space for so long, we have this expert blindness. That we assume that people have the basic knowledge of Web3 and blockchain. So
Yes.
it's something that we always have to remind ourselves, yes, we have to onboard Web2 crowds into Web3. In order to do that, we need to really start from the basic, from the foundation, from ABCs. That's why we have layers. We have different roles, even in marketing. We have the ambassadors who help to onboard. We have community managers who help out, with little things here and there. We also have, guilds and community in each country that person to really represent and help to onboard. So yeah, for bringing Web2s, like I said, we have to really start from the basic, and we have to really always remind ourselves, not everyone has the basic or the intermediate, I guess, the knowledge to start with.
Great. I think the common consensus that I see here, and I'm really pleased with the kind of point we brought about, Manbir, all thanks to you, and the kind of validation that we've got from the other panelists as well, is I think one solution potentially towards security is standardization. And that brings with it a cascading set of changes across the board, across different verticals, which makes things a lot more easier and a lot more secure. There's not much we can do about the user and the way that they take responsibility. When Web3 boomed, it was a child who's gotten too much freedom, and that's where most of the security issues came up as well. But I think standardization seems to be one potential way where we can probably do a lot of benefit across, any ecosystem, right? And also, I think this sets us up for the next segment that we want to be discussing, which is with respect to how is it that we can onboard users itself, mainly from a strategy point of view. What sort of onboarding strategies can we use? Especially because we want to be increasing adoption, not through over-the-top airdrops or any of these things, but by building trust, by building credibility, like any the companies outside of Web3 do traditional marketing, right? And that's what is also sticks. So I just want your thoughts in terms of how is it that what are some strategies that probably dApps can use, projects can use, and we can probably go about it from early stage to like more mature companies and even probably enterprise companies. So Dazzle, will start with you and then go around.
Can I have a minute?
Go for it. If anybody wants to pick it up in the meantime, go for it.
Sure. I can start by giving a few examples of the things that I've done in the past. So at MetaMask, last year itself, we introduced a partnership, actually a couple of partnerships, and one of them was led by myself. So we partnered with OnRamp Money, which is an on-ramp solution provider in India, and it allows people to purchase crypto via UPI and IMPS. UPI, I'm not sure if people here know, but Unified Payments Interface is the biggest payment method in India, which processes volume worth trillions of dollars every single year. And it is very extensively used for micropayments.
Kind of like Cashify or Venmo.
Kind of Cashify, Venmo,
but
PayPal.
But on steroids, they're a lot better.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, we came up with this idea to partner with OnRamp Money, which was already providing crypto access via UPI, and we integrated OnRamp within MetaMask, and it, I'm not sure if I'm supposed to tell the numbers, but it 10x'd the volume, or it increased the volume by over 900%, month over month, which was something that I feel that clearly reflected a big demand. So we need to think local. We need to think of more of localization initiatives. In what ways we can already, we can integrate with the existing solutions, existing traditional payment interfaces, existing organizations and partners that exist, And another example that I can give is translation programs. So we can do content specifically in local languages for people to better understand how to get started with particular technology, how to get started with a solution. I think that is going to help a lot in terms of adoption as well. And people can also feel a sense of familiarity when they see content in their own language. They feel a need to kind of give back to the ecosystem when they can resonate with what they see, what they hear. And yeah, I would love to hear Andy's thoughts or Dazzle's thoughts.
Okay, still processing. Okay. Well, I mean, building off of what Manbir just said, we want standardization, right? We want localization. Essentially, we just need to remove as much education out of it as possible for the onboarding process. And if you can do that, then it just becomes what everybody is struggling with right now is even in Web2, right? Is just delivering on your promise, right? And then how great is the experience for what you're asking the user to do.
Correct.
But really a big part, I think, like onboarding is like to really remove as many barriers to entry as possible, and that comes with standardization, localization, and also a lot of education. So perhaps, like more university involvement, because, like the blockchain isn't going to go away, like how it evolves, how people use it, that's up to every individual. But the technology is here.
You guys said it very well. You cannot take education out of this. I'm a little...
Probably, in fact, one of the things that sort of comes to my mind is, let's say I'm starting off a company, right? Unless I've raised funds, which is already quite tricky, right? I do not have the bandwidth to educate users, but I do need to do that. Now, we take that as a couple of steps further. You have slightly more mature companies. The thing is, the mature companies, they can do education, but they're moving things on a much larger scale that probably education is not the only component that's moving it, right? You've got a bunch of different moving parts. So in terms of onboarding strategies, I just want to understand, do you think, I think one of the reasons why we had all of these airdrops and all of these incentive programs which came up back then was because they wanted to cut through all of this. Be like, hey, there's this massive, huge thing that you're going to get, and this the amount of money you're going to make, and there's this dollar, which is why it was also glitzy all around, right? So on that front, I think your thoughts in terms of how is it that, across this stage, how do you think the onboarding strategies could change, or how it's evolved, or some tips or advice that you might have?
One thing I can think of is coming from Korea, and the popular of K-pop. So one company called Hyundai Card, they produced this system where all the concert tickets are purchased through NFTs. So it has the transparency of using blockchain to purchase tickets, and that really prevents secondary market selling, the black markets. So that was something that was really successfully done in Korea this year. And whoever purchased tickets, they had the NFT, and then if they wanted to resell, they were able to resell on the secondary market legally. And then the profit of that was able to go to the concert itself and the artist. Correct. So that was something that was really useful for the artist, and that was like a trend and definitely a shaker, a mover that's starting to pick up in Korea. So a lot of artists in Korea are looking into NFTs, concert tickets in NFTs, as well as blockchain. So that was something that was really cool that I wanted to share from Korea.
Okay, that's cool. So unfortunately, we are almost out of time. So I've got one last question, and this is a slightly big one. So now that we've had a proper bull cycle and a proper bear cycle, now we're back to the bull. we're starting to see a trend where there's institutional involvement, not from an investment perspective, but from a building perspective. You've got big companies, you've got banks, you've got other organizations, MNCs across the world, which are trying to see if they can integrate blockchain tech into their projects. In fact, at Etherspot, because we are an infrastructure provider, we talk to multiple clients like this. Providing how is it that we can abstract away the complexity of building on blockchain. So just one quick round we're going to do in terms of how do you think enterprise involvement in building blockchain applications and scaling those up is going to really help?
Oh man, from Korean perspective, Hyundai is one of the big conglomerates in Korea, and then Hyundai cars are starting to give out NFTs to car buyers, and then enterprises like other Samsung, of course you guys already know, they're making the shift into blockchain, and they're really investing into the blockchain, and that is really creating this big, massive adoption into Web3, and that's creating trend, creating hype, creating awareness, general awareness of Web3, and that's definitely helping when the big ones move, the smaller ones follow. So
correct.
Yeah, for sure.
Awesome. Manbir?
For sure. So I'm not sure. I believe most of you probably heard of Gnosis Pay
Yes.
at this point. So Gnosis recently partnered with Visa, if I'm not wrong. So Visa and MasterCard have been actively providing, crypto cards. I think that is going to play a major role in terms of adoption as well. So the way enterprises and even big businesses like MasterCard and Visa getting into this space by providing, cards, I think that's going to be very disruptive. The way I see institutions specifically is I think they need to fund more public goods projects, public goods initiatives that are actively trying to make impact in this space. But I would love to hear Andy's thoughts as well.
I'll just kind of keep it simple. It's more of the fact that the blockchain is really about like the transparency and the immutability of everything. So a lot of enterprises can be like, hey, if you don't believe me, it's on the blockchain. If you don't believe that I will actually give you your interest on doing this, it's in the smart contract, right? Like we put our money where our smart contract is. So I think it's just really down to that. It really will offload a lot of responsibilities and work for them.
So I think the general consensus is that enterprise involvement finally in the building aspect on the blockchain is something that's hugely beneficial. It does make things a lot more easier. As you said, Dazzle, once the big whales start moving, the rest of the smaller ones follow. And I think great point, Andy, in terms of how is it that, from a business point of view, it's also hugely beneficial for the companies as well. So I think that's time. I think we'll have to conclude the panel on this front. I'm super happy with the kind of discussion we've had. We brought out some great points. Thank you so much, Andy, Manbir, Dazzle, for sharing your thoughts. I'm hoping that the audiences here have had a great conversation as well. And have had some ideas. Unfortunately, we were unable to open up the panel for an audience Q&A, but I think all of us will be available to chat right after. So feel free to approach us. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.